Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
That was perfect.
Yeah.
Which begs the question, Dan Kent, was that one of your many careers for our bingo card? Were you ever a TV producer of sorts?
No, I never been on TV in any professional capacity. So, how about you? Have you? No, not as anything important. So, I might be like, one of those guys in the background picking his nose while the newscaster is talking about like some event or something like that. But right. I don't think I've.
Yeah, I have actually, not anything major. When I was in high school, middle school, high school, my mom worked in I'll just say the industry for several years, many years. And she did makeup, hair, and wardrobe. And so a lot of times when there would be local commercial shoots, they needed folks. And so sometimes I'd be like a background person or whatever. And I was in a movie as a background. Like I got to throw up shopping bags and run out of the way of a speeding car.
Oh my goodness.
That was like Dolph Lundgren that tells you how long ago it was. He was the action hero in that one. And then I did a commercial promoting MC Hammer's Can't Touch This tour. That was coming through.
Ouch. Are you serious? Did you know?
Yeah, but
we have a mutual friend. Me and MC Hammer we need to get him on the show because
we do.
We're like besties. He retweeted me 2 years ago. So yeah, we're all
okay. Hammer, give us a call. We need you on the show,
right.
man.
That's right.
Give us your take. That would be perfect.
Yeah. This is, and not only, and to help, kind of, what do you say, sweeten the deal. This is probably, as far as I know, the most popular sermon discussion show in the world. So I don't know how you can turn that down. So.
I mean, and like we said last week, Dan and I are kind of reaching that influencer status.
That's
so
right.
I'm just saying it wouldn't do you any bad to come on the show, Hammer.
That's right.
All right. Let me just say, Happy Muse Day. Welcome. Good to see you, Dan. And you are doing well, feeling good
well.
Down
right.
south. Good. I appreciate that.
Rainy and cold, but it's not as cold as other parts of the country.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. When I was driving into service on Sunday, it was -8.
Yeah.
When I was leaving service, it had climbed up to 0. So we're good.
Baseline.
We're trending warmer. It's going to be great. So your rain and your cold can just, I'm not going to say what I want to say. You can just keep that to yourself. But it's okay. It's all good. Hey, you guys, we're glad you're here. He's Dan Kent. I'm Shawna Boren, and every week we come together to discuss Sunday sermon from Woodland Hills Church. And here in the States, it was MLK weekend. And so our service had a lot of celebratory elements integrated into it. It was just a beautiful, wonderful, very encouraging, energetic day. Like, I know you weren't in the building, Dan, but it was a buzz. Like things were vibing, and it was really great, really cool. And I'm sure you experienced some of that online.
Yeah, totally. Watching online, I'm like, man, I want to be in that. I want to be part of that. Definitely a different vibe online, I'm sure, especially since some of the audio wasn't great this week. And so I would have loved to have been actually in the building. So,
yeah, good stuff. Well, we got a treat. So a slight break from Revelation. Never fear, we're going right back to it this next weekend. But a slight break from Revelation, and I think rightly so, to really celebrate the legacy of MLK Jr. and our call as kingdom people living here and now to march on in reconciliation issues. And yes, that's racial reconciliation, but it's also a polarizing topic in our world today. It won't take you long to come up with one. And we are a part of the call to march toward breaking down those walls and embracing the diversity that we all have. I think it's really cool. So we did that this Sunday, and we had like I said, a couple of different elements. We had a choir up there. That was so fun to hear from them. And then we had these interpretive dancers worshiping to song through dance. That was beautiful. And then we got to hear from the tag team of Greg and Pierre. And Dan, I think it's just awesome that you're going to do a sermon. Don't know how you're going to do it on those two guys. And let me just say, you're welcome that I'm not having you summarize, the interpretive dance or the choir. Like I could like expand the scope here, but we're just going to keep it because I think that's going to be a fun task for you, just covering those two guys.
Yeah. Well, it was, first of all, there's two preachers. So there's really kind of two sermons, which means that I think, and this is just between you and me, I think we should get paid double for this episode of the MuseCast. That's my opinion. But it was technically one sermon. It was team teaching, and so how they did it was, Greg kind of kicked it off, and then Pierre jumped in, then Greg came back, and then Pierre sort of closed it out. And I tell you what, Pierre, this is the first time we've had him kind of in a teaching sort of capacity. We've had him do spoken word, and it's so funny. There's something weird about this, but it seems like if you go back and watch Pierre's spoken words, I think he's done it maybe 3 times, and at least 2 of those times it's fallen on a day that I'm preaching. Okay. And so, and then now he does this sermon, and he's got so much energy the week before I'm preaching. And this is my lament. Okay. That guy has so much passion and energy, and it's going to sound like, basically you had a Kiss concert this weekend, and next weekend you have John Denver. I mean, it's going to be, woe is me,
no. It's good. Listen, we need are you familiar with Baskin Robbins, Dan?
Yes, I am. Yes,
32 flavors. Yeah. We need it all. We need it all. So
here comes vanilla is on the way.
That is not where I was going. You are not vanilla, and I wouldn't classify you as John Denver, but if that's what you're going with, I say bring on John. It's going to be
okay.
Good.
All right.
As well.
Good. Well, I tell you, where do you even start? Well, Greg starts off the sermon with just talking about how faith is basically this substance of things hoped for, and this conviction of things that have not yet been seen, and that's taken directly out of Hebrews 11. And he just talks about how we have this conviction of this, basically this vision of what God has in store for us, what God is doing with His creation, and we develop this conviction for that vision, and that doesn't mean that we actually see it. And unfortunately, a lot of the heroes of the faith didn't see it. They didn't see Christ. They didn't see anything really, and yet they still lived their life with that conviction. And so he starts off with this vision that God has for us, and that faith really is living into that vision. And then he said, in the same way that a lot of the heroes of the faith didn't actually see that, he shares this really great quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, where the day before King was shot, he's kind of confessing that he doesn't think that he's going to see any of the fruit of his own labor. And that was just a nice piece to tie that to Dr. King. Then Pierre came in. They did the little tag high five, and Pierre comes in, and he's also talking about vision. But in particular, he is sharing this kind of part of the vision is that really being Christians, it means that we are a masterpiece sharing in the master's piece. And what does it mean to be a masterpiece of God? He says that it means that we are in the image of God, or in other words, we are an icon that is representing the Creator as we live in God's creation. And he does this great job of tying this idea of iconography, or being an avatar, or being a representative, or being in the image of God. He ties that to the story of paying taxes to Caesar. And when somebody questioned Jesus, hey, should we pay taxes since we're part of a different kingdom now? We don't have to pay taxes for this kingdom. And Jesus kind of stops them right there and says, well, let's see this money that we're supposed to pay. And of course, we all know the story. On the coin, there's an image of Caesar, and Jesus says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but give to God what is God's. In other words, on the coin, there is an icon, an avatar of Caesar. So that's his. But on us, we are the icons of God. So we should be giving ourselves to God, and don't worry about the money component. And I just thought that was a great way to tie that to being in the image of God, and just kind of trumpeting this reality that we belong to God. We don't belong to the government. We don't belong to the world. We belong to God. And then he does this really cool thing where he shares another iconic, a different kind of use of that word, and as well done on his part, this iconic painting of the Last Supper. And he compares that in a really creative way to the creation story, where God is hovering over the deep, over the chaos, and then he speaks order into the chaos. He says, "Let there be light," and he contrasts that with Jesus at the supper table, and he's eating with all of these sinners and tax collectors, and people are kind of gossiping, like, what is Jesus doing here? And of course, that's where he says it's not the healthy that needs a doctor, it's the sick. And he ties that to the creation story in this way. He said, before Jesus speaks light, before he brings healing, he hovers in the chaos. He hovers with sin. In other words, God loves us, and he, even to the extent that he will dwell with us and be with us, he's not afraid of our sin, even though he is about to eradicate it. And I just thought that was an awesome way of just tying those things together. In other words, whatever darkness or evil or void or whatever that we have in our lives, God is right there in the middle of that, and he is hovering in that with us. And then he kind of talks about, okay, speaking of visions and speaking of iconographic images, he says that's basically what this has been about from the beginning. God has this vision for humanity, and because of the deception of the serpent, Eve and Adam have this reinterpretation or revision of it. They basically distort that, and everything changes, and now they see everything that was supposed to be good, they see that through the lens of shame. And one of the consequences of that is they don't really see that God actually loves them. And then he moves to Jesus, where Jesus is going to rescue that original vision. And he, again, does a really clever and good job of contrasting Adam in the garden with the serpent, and Jesus and the serpent in the wilderness. And just says that, man, Adam had everything, and yet he still failed, and he betrayed God, and he chose himself over God. Whereas Jesus had nothing, and yet he succeeded over the serpent. And I thought that was interesting. Greg comes on to basically summarize kind of what's going on here, that God casts this vision, Adam distorts the vision, Jesus is going to recast the vision. And Greg shares Ephesians 2:13 through 16 as sort of the key verse of recasting that vision, which just talks about how in Christ all of these barriers and power barriers and oppressive markers that the world uses against humanity are no longer meaningful in Christ. They're the barriers between slaves and free, whites and blacks, male and female, everything. It's all gone now, and that has to be part of our new vision. And then Pierre came back on to kind of close us off and kind of brought the whole thing home in a really succinct way. He just said that we need to see what God's vision is for us and record that. That is, make that a permanent part of us. Record that vision and just contemplate how God's vision affects you and how that can change your heart and how you can have a passion for that vision. And number two is when you get that vision and how that relates to yourself and your own heart, and when it becomes personal for you, then proclaim that vision and then live out that vision is the third point that he says. Live out that vision. Live as if you are now new. You are no longer part of that old vision. You have been recast in this new vision. And then number four is to protect that vision. And he does a great job then of showing how this iconographic image of Jesus at the supper table had to be kind of redone, and because it had faded over the years, and it was a 20-year process, and that was just kind of a clever way of tying that all together. And so Pierre invites us to kind of do the same thing, is to reconnect with God's vision for us and renew our own vision of ourselves in light of that vision. So tell you what, lots of energy. It was chaos. It was, there were dancers dangling from the ceiling, doing cartwheels. There was choirs there, but it all came together, and it was impressive. I was a little bummed about the audio quality because that we have to work on that. We're not used to having somebody who is at both ends of intensity, and I think that might have been a problem for us to manage technically. So we'll have to figure that out when we have Pierre back. But hey, that was the best I could do with that sermon, and it was a really great sermon. And so I leave it to your thoughts and considerations.
Well, good job on the summary, and I am with you. It was two sermons nicely intertwined into one, so double our pay for what we get paid for the MuseCast, which is nothing, but that's okay. It's a part of big bonuses coming our way.
That's right.
Big bonuses.
That's right.
I'm just okay. Rather than just respond directly to the sermon, I want to. I will do that, but I also just want to kind of respond just to the whole vibe and intent of the service, because I feel like people understand why we would take a break from Revelation on this particular Sunday to honor the legacy of Dr. Reverend MLK Jr. I think people understand that and are with us on that. At least people know that's what we do. It's a huge part of what we're about. And so I'm really thankful for that. And because I think I bring up the Reverend part because this man was a believer. And I think it was because of his walk with the Lord that he was able to have such strength in his convictions of equality as a Black man during a time when Black men were not respected or weren't given equality so readily. So I think it's really important, and it shows how our faith is all encompassing. It's not just something we do on a Sunday and we learn and then we go about. It should impact the totality of our lives. And so I think it was absolutely appropriate to take this Sunday to celebrate, to remember, and then to kind of get marching orders to continue the fight. And so this is where Greg and Pierre's sermon, I feel like fit in really nicely. It was a reminder of the fact that we are made in the image of God, and that we are his image bearers, and that we are his representatives. And a lot of that has been corroded amongst humanity, and there's a lot of fighting. And I would love to think that that's not the case in the church, but we know that's unfortunately not the truth. We're seeing it in the church as well. And so I think it was a great reminder. This tag team sermon was a great reminder of why we are people of faith, and what we are hoping for, and what we are striving for as his image bearers. And I think it was really powerful to be reminded of the fact that God is in the midst of the chaos. He hovers. He's not afar off and then swooping in with a solution. He's right there in the midst of it. And so if you were to look around your world today, 2024, and just, pick out a chaotic theme, you can rest assured that God is in the midst of it. And I think that is where our faith comes in, and that is where our hope comes in. And I say all of that to say that for all of those reasons, this to me was a very inspirational, yes, energetic, yes, different, and in many ways, yes, chaotic, because of all the different elements and all the things that the behind the scenes folks had to keep up with, but ultimately just a really powerful, inspirational service from the worship to the dance to the sermons, to the way things were closed out. I just thought it was really powerful. And I will end my response by saying the thing that has resonated most with me is the way Pierre closed out the sermon and the service by talking about what all of this means for us, this kind of revision, this reimagining of what it means to be his image bearers in the world today. It should be so different for us, the way that we're living, the way that we're behaving in the world, that it is as if all of those awful things never happened. And I just thought that was so powerful. And as it relates to the theme of marching on and reconciliation, like we should be us, brothers and sisters, I don't care what church you're a part of, but like kingdom people, we should be living in such a way that when people look at us, it is as if any of that awful animosity and all of those isms, like none of it ever existed. And that is, that is substance to hope for. And I know we don't fully have the evidence of it yet, but there again, that was the point of the message, is to strive for those things and to have faith. So I thought it was beautiful and powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree with that. And that ending too, you're right. That was awesome. I think, it's interesting just talking to some people in my circles. I think people really liked it, and you can see on the chat and stuff, people really enjoyed it, and it is different. It's so different than us, and people tend to think of Greg as having energy, but man, not compared to Pierre,
right?
And so I know that there are people who they don't know what to do with that type of preaching, that type of style,
right?
And I get that, and for me, like. Well, I'll just say this. I think that white evangelical kind of Protestant tradition, there is a part of our tradition, especially coming from the Reformed end, that absolutely 100% distrusts emotion. And in fact, emotion is sort of shunned, because emotion is when you manipulate people's feelings, and they don't want to manipulate people into faith. They want people to come to faith because of the cold, hard logic of it all. And if you manipulate people with emotions, they don't really know what they believe. They just believe. And so there's always been this resistance to emotionalism on the stage, and I understand that, and I probably have been affected by that as well, and even for me, like when I think about what is the persona that I want to preach with, I always feel like I want to be whatever I am on the stage. That's who I want to be off the stage. I want people to see the real me. And there's something good about that. And so like when I'm up there, I want to share a sermon as if we're chatting at the bar. We're at a sports bar. We've got virgin pina coladas in our hands, and I'm telling you about God. That's how I want it to be. And that's a good thing. But there is this whole other tradition, and there are other traditions that don't agree with that paranoia around emotion. And definitely when I see like emotional preaching, all of my white Protestant kind of defenses come up. And a lot of times I will see a lot of emotion and no real substance there. And that tends to confirm, my suspicions and my paranoias. But I got to tell you, when you see someone like Pierre come along, and he has this fire and this passion, And there is so much substance here, and not just substance, but like really creative interplay between these totally disparate sort of parts of God's revelation. And he pulls them together in this very creative, profound, meaningful way. I love the emotion and how he just rides that, because I think what's different there is that for me and people like me, when I preach, I tend to say, man, this is how God is really speaking to me. And I try to share how the Bible and the revelation of God affects me. And I want you to experience, or at least to see, how God has affected me. So maybe it might have affected you. And that's one way to do it. And I think that that's good. But another way to do it is if you can, as a preacher, create the feeling in the room, so that you create this ambiance of the truth that you're speaking. If you can create like a, instead of saying like, look, God has really warmed my heart. How about if I just warm the whole room so that we can all feel that warmth? There is this sense in which that type of preaching can create an ambiance that the message can get through in more dimensions than it can get through in just me speaking, the raw facts of it, the raw heart of it. And so I think that when I see people, preach with the gifts that Pierre has, and man, he is gifted. There are risks that you take with that, but there are risks with the way that I do it too. And that's why I love that we're open to this and we tried it out. And it means that you might have to just kind of put on hold your suspicions and paranoias and your history of Protestantism or whatever, and just be open to seeing, what is this and how can God use this in my life? And I think that people who are able to do that, and people who did do that, man, I think that they were blessed in a big way this weekend, because there was a lot of really great stuff there. And that's when you have that substance, man, the passion and the emotion, it really, it brings to life that substance in a very compelling way. So,
yeah, I think it's really important that you shared that, Dan. And so thank you, first of all, for doing so. Because, let's just be honest. Sunday's service in totality was very different than what we typically do. And I will say that was intentional. And the heart behind both the MLK team and those of us on staff and in leadership at Woodland Hills, we really wanted this, we wanted to kind of put feet to the message of reconciliation, of crossing divides, of embracing other traditions and cultures. It's one thing to say that, and it can sound nice, learning to love together, but are we really? And learning to love together can sometimes, and maybe more than we like to admit, that can mean learning something new and different, or learning in a new and different way, or from a new and different vessel. And so it was different, and I get it that it maybe wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea, but I would just say that for many people, and across many traditions and across many generations, that is absolutely their cup of tea. And we don't have time, but we can get into the history of the Black church and some of the things that lend to why typically you will find more verbose preachers within the Black church. There is reasons behind all of that, but ultimately my thought, my heart is man, if these people have a heart for Jesus and want to bring me along for the ride and sharing with me what they are experiencing, I am all for it. And I think it's beautiful to look beyond ourselves, look beyond maybe comfort zones, and just consider that God would speak in a different way. Because I have a feeling whenever, we are all reunited, and whatever that looks like and whatever heaven is, I have a feeling that we're going to be surprised by some of it. I have a feeling that it's not all going to be what we know and what we're used to and the way we would do things. So I don't know, just a feeling I have.
Yeah. Well, and the way that you said all that too, it reminds me even the way I said it is like, I even referred to the Sunday service as a certain amount of chaos, and it wasn't chaos. It was just overwhelming in all of the different things. And so you're right. I mean, it's when you look at like how different this service was and how many components of differentness there was, and each part was very beautiful. I just, hats off to the MLK team, because they work on this all year. They think about how can we do something that's not just cliche, that's not just a head nod, an obligatory shout out to Dr. King, but it's something that really, where we're actually, the way that Pierre put it, we're protecting the vision. We're trying to reinvigorate, restoke the fire of that vision. And because, the march, it wasn't a one-time thing. It was the beginning of a long march, and we're still marching on. And that's the title of the service. And so the MLK team, they work really, really hard on this. And I shared this last week. I was nervous about the dancers. I didn't know what to expect. And it was beautiful. Right. It was great. It was
so
awesome.
Beautiful. So, Yeah, that was funny, Dan. I think a lot of people, because it was unexpected and we didn't know, we didn't have the typical like run throughs in place to be able to know what was going to happen. But it was absolutely gorgeous, and you could sense it and you can feel it. It was just powerful and beautiful. I do have one more question for you, or maybe it's really my only question for you today before we transition to nugget time. And that is like, we heard from me about my thoughts about taking this particular Sunday and diverting from Revelation a little. But you, as a regular part of the teaching team and as one who helps to craft the series and stuff, I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts in, because I know there are people who are like, get back to Revelation. I'm not saying they said don't do what we did Sunday, but like we're kind of, the steam has picked up in the series. We're really excited about it. And so as a teacher, one of the teaching pastors, what are your thoughts about taking this Sunday, setting Revelation aside and diving into this message on MLK Sunday?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love that we haven't the holiday. And one of the benefits of having the MLK holiday is it gives us a scheduled time to remember this vision and to tap back into that. And so I think that that's really important. But I also think that can sort of become kind of obligatory, and you can do that in a way that it doesn't really restoke the fire. I thought we restoked the fire this weekend. That was amazing. So for me, I would like to see, I guess this is the downside. At some point, the holiday is really good, but at some point, it's got to be more than a holiday. And so that's where I really hope that, and I'm optimistic. I think that it will, but I would like to see more of this type of thing when there's not like a national holiday to justify it, but it's just, we're doing it because that we want to learn to love together. We want to pursue God's vision for us together, because God's vision is for all of us. And so it will eventually be for all of us together. And so part of living toward that vision is to start doing those things together. And that's where of course, taking the time off from the Revelation series is great, but even more so, I would like to see more of it just spontaneously, maybe if there's something going on in culture or something that would be a good reason for us to do it again, I would love to do that. And that's the thing too, is it's like, the Revelation series, that's going to be there. It's going to be there for a long time. Right. So, and even, pulling together some, research for upcoming sermons, it's like some of the stuff that Pierre did, I think fits really well into the Revelation series. And I think it's going to be a good part. It's going to end up becoming part of what we teach in the Revelation series. And we wouldn't have had that if we didn't have Pierre. So that's my take on it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I shared earlier the importance of it to me. And I agree. I am thankful for a marked time on the calendar to kind of hold space for this. But would that we catch the vision that was so eloquently and passionately preached about, that we would just be living this out and find moments to celebrate this beyond just this particular Sunday. And I do think it's important to remember, of course. I think it's important to look back and to celebrate and to pay our respects. But like we said throughout the service on Sunday, it's up to each generation to discern your time, your place, and how you carry forward in this message. And so, I would love it if we didn't need a date on the calendar, but that's all right. It's okay. We'll start there, and then it's just up to us to like envelop it more into the rest of our lives. So those are my final thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So with that, we go into nugget time. Woo-hoo! And can I go first, Dan? Is that okay? I usually give you a choice. Okay.
Yeah.
So for my nugget, I just want to reiterate the part of the sermon where Pierre was talking about the vision, the revision. And I want to encourage us all to take some time over the next several days and to sit with the Lord, however that works for you, because we're all wired differently. And so it's going to look different for each of us. But however that works for you, where you can really feel like you are spending some time in the presence of God and just able to share your heart with him and hear from him what he has to say over you. Because remember, he is right there in the midst, regardless of what is going on in our life, how chaotic or calm things are. He is right there. He is hovering in the midst of all of that. And ask him what your place is. Like, it's one thing to say, we have a place that we need to march on. That's great. Okay. And that is collective, but it's also individual. And so my encouragement is for each of us just to sit and to ask the Lord, like, okay, what is my part of this grand vision? And what do I need to do and be in order to walk out my part? Because when we're each walking out our parts, when we're each marching on, it all comes together like a beautiful puzzle piece. And then we have this grand masterpiece. And so ultimately, my prayer is that everyone sees and fully understands that we are his masterpiece and we have a part to play in completing the masterpiece. So ask the Lord what your part of the vision is. And then, yes, all the things, proclaim it, live it out, and protect it. Don't let that be stolen from you, and don't let the enemy lie to you about it and try to downplay it and take your eyes off of the goal. So that is my nugget.
Yeah, that's a good nugget. I think I'm going to tap into something that Pierre also talked about. And I think that is the most important thing, is to just imagine what that means for you. And I think I really liked what he talked about how we should live as if we're new. And so, once you kind of figure out what that vision means for you and how that connects with you, I think, what does that, act as if that's true because you believe it is. So now act as if it is. And C.S. Lewis talks in the Screw Tape Letters about how, when we take on this new person that we are in Christ, there is this sense in which we're sort of play acting, we're pretending. But that only feels that way because we're not used to living that way. And once we live that way, and especially since we believe it's true, it starts to then feel more genuine and more true. And so I guess I think that I was really probably excited about that as a closure to the message, is to, okay, now live as if you are new, live as if this vision is true and you are in this new vision, this revision, as it were. And what does that look like for you? And I think that involves reflection and contemplation, like you said, Shawna. So that's, I guess that would be my nugget.
Good job, Dan. All right, folks, that is it for us today. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to chatting with you 4 p.m. on YouTube. And remember, if you are ever not able to get in front of a screen to watch YouTube, you can take us with you because the MuseCast can be found anywhere you listen to your podcast. So you can have Shawna and Dan just ringing in your ears whenever you want. And wow, what a gift that would be. But you guys, come on back, because this weekend we get right back into Revelation, and Dan's going to have some amazing things for us, and then circle back, because next Tuesday we'll break it all down and continue that conversation. Have an awesome week, you guys. Thank you for being a part of the MuseCast and a part of Woodland Hills. Have a great one.